The story begins with the boy who suddenly wakes up inside an elevator that was shooting upward at high speed. Strangely, the elevator was filled with food supplies. But the most shocking thing was, this boy had no memory of who he was or where he came from. When the elevator finally reached the top, the doors opened and a group of boys surrounded him. Confused and scared, he had no idea what was happening. Among them was a boy named Glade, who stepped inside the elevator and began examining him. Terrified, the new boy immediately ran off, but only a short distance away, he stumbled and fell. When he stood up, he realized something shocking. The place he was trapped in had no way out. Gigantic walls surrounded the entire area, making it impossible to escape by climbing over them. Soon, the boys captured him and threw him into a cage-like structure. A little while later, their leader, Albie, arrived. He tried talking to the boy, hoping to learn something about him. But since the boy had no memories at all, he couldn't give any answers. Albie then calmly explained that this was completely normal. Every newcomer who arrived here through the elevator had no memory of their past, but usually, within a day or two, they would at least remember their names. Although the boy still didn't understand anything, Albie decided to take him on a tour of the area. He saw other boys farming and building shelters, trying to survive. Albie explained that every month the elevator delivered new supplies, and along with them, one new person who, like him, arrived with no memory. But the strangest part was, none of them knew where they really were or who kept sending them food and people. Soon, another boy named Newt showed up. Albie introduced him as the second in command. As they were talking, the new boy's eyes caught a massive opening in one of the giant walls. Curious, he asked about it. Albie immediately warned him that going near that place was forbidden, as it was extremely dangerous. For now, the boy didn't press further and left with a younger kid named Chuck, who offered him a place to rest. But deep inside, he couldn't shake the thought. Maybe that opening was the way out. Later, he actually tried to approach the opening, but Chuck stopped him just in time. At that very moment, two exhausted boys, Ben and Minho, came running out of the passage. That's when the newcomer realized the truth. Beyond the opening was an enormous maze. But escaping it wasn't that simple. The maze changed its paths every night, and terrifying creatures known as Grievers lurked inside, hunting anyone who stayed too long. No one had ever survived a night in the maze. That's why only specially trained boys, called runners, were allowed to enter. And at this point, Minho and Ben were the only runners in the group. Meanwhile, Glade had already noticed that the new boy was curious about the maze. He angrily confronted him and even pushed him. Just then, the giant wall's opening began to close for the night, and the rumbling sounds signaled that the maze was shifting again. That night, while eating, Newt explained more. The Grievers were lethal mechanical creatures that killed anyone trapped inside after dark. For the last 3 years, the runners had been trying to solve the maze, but they still hadn't found an exit. Later, Glade challenged the new boy to a fight, a sort of game the group played for entertainment. Surprisingly, the boy accepted. During the fight, he was knocked to the ground, and when his head hit the dirt, a memory suddenly came back to him. His name. He remembered that his name was Thomas. When the others found out, they cheered and welcomed him into their group. That night, as Thomas tried to sleep, he had disturbing visions, flashes of doctors in lab coats, and a girl's face. A girl who seemed to be connected to his lost past. The story continues with Thomas waking up the next morning. Albie takes him to a massive wall where the names of everyone who ever came to this place are carved. But Thomas notices that some names are crossed out. Those belong to people who were either killed by the Grievers or who gave up all hope and ended their own lives. For now, Thomas also carves his name on that wall, marking his place among them. Later, he starts helping out with the daily work and casually asks why nobody has ever tried going back down using the same lift. But the others tell him they've already tried every possible way of escaping. The maze is the only hope they have left, though no one has ever been able to solve it. Hearing this, Thomas wanders off toward a small forest nearby. Suddenly, Ben, one of the boys, attacks him in a violent and strange way. Shocked and confused, Thomas runs back to the others for help. They restrain Ben, and when his shirt is pulled up, they see a terrifying sting wound from a Griever. He had been infected the previous day. Thomas then tells Albie that during the attack, Ben kept saying all of this was happening because of Thomas, but Thomas has no idea what he meant. Albie explains that after someone gets stung by a Griever, they lose control of their mind and start saying nonsense. There's no cure, and sadly, nothing could be done for Ben. So at sunset, when the maze doors were about to close, everyone with heavy hearts pushes Ben inside the maze, leaving him to his fate. That night, Thomas has another dream, this time of a lab, where he sees a woman telling him that WCKD is good. But Thomas still can't remember who she is or what connection he has to her. The next morning, Thomas sees Minho and Albie entering the maze. Confused, Thomas wonders why Albie, who isn't a runner, would risk going inside. Later, Newt explains that Albie was actually the very first boy ever sent to this place. He's the one who set the rules, and because of that, everyone trusts him deeply. Albie is determined to find a way out for all of them, but as night begins to fall, Minho and Albie still haven't returned. The others anxiously wait by the maze entrance, but the doors start closing. Suddenly, they spot Minho struggling to carry Albie on his shoulders. Albie had been stung by a Griever. Panic spreads among the group as the gates are almost shut. With no other choice, Thomas runs straight into the maze to save them. Since the maze paths were about to change soon, Minho quickly told Thomas that they had to move deeper inside, but Thomas refused to leave without Albie. So, together, Minho and Thomas lifted Albie and carried him further in. On the way, Thomas noticed thick vines hanging from the walls. To keep Albie safe, Thomas tied him up with the vines and hung him above the ground, but just then, they heard the sound of a Griever approaching them. Hearing this, Minho immediately ran away, but Thomas still held onto the vine with Albie tied to it. Soon, the Griever moved past Thomas and chased after Minho. At that moment, Thomas noticed that the Griever's leg was mechanical. For now, he didn't think much about it, quickly tied Albie's vines securely, and then hid behind a wall. Unfortunately, his foot stepped into the slimy drool dripping from the Griever's mouth, making a sound. Because of that noise, the Griever turned and began moving toward him. To save his life, Thomas ran, but soon reached a dead end where there was no way out. With no other choice, he climbed up the wall and began jumping from one wall to another. The Griever chased him relentlessly. At one point, Thomas leapt down and barely managed to keep his balance while the Griever got tangled in the vines. Just then, Minho returned to Thomas. Thinking quickly, Minho distracted the Griever and lured it between two moving walls of the maze, where it was crushed and destroyed. The next morning, no one expected Thomas, Minho, or Albie to have survived the night. But when all three of them came out alive, everyone was overjoyed. And when they learned that, thanks to Thomas's quick thinking, they had actually killed a Griever, they were even more thrilled. However, Gally still wanted Thomas punished because he had gone into the maze despite not being a runner, which was against the rules. But the others disagreed, and instead, they made Thomas a runner. That meant he could now officially enter the maze whenever he wanted. Just then, something shocking happened. For the first time ever, the lift came up before the full month was complete. Everyone was stunned, and inside the lift, for the very first time, there was a girl. She suddenly regained consciousness and screamed Thomas's name before collapsing back into unconsciousness. Nobody could understand what was going on. Thomas then noticed a note clutched in her hand. It said that she was the last person who would ever be sent there. For now, everyone carried the girl back to the hut. Meanwhile, since the group believed that after killing a Griever, they would have a better chance at finding a way out, Minho added Thomas to his runner team. Together, they went back inside the maze to search for an exit. While exploring, they found a dead Griever stuck to a wall. When Minho touched it, the body twitched once, but then they realized it wasn't a living creature at all. It was just a machine. They began dismantling its parts, and underneath one of its legs, they discovered a strange device emitting a beeping sound. On it was the number 7 and the word WCKD. What shocked them even more was that their supply crates also came with the same WCKD label. This meant the same company that was supplying them with goods had also created the monsters. They returned and told the others about it, but Gally was still obsessed with punishing Thomas. So, Newt decided to give Thomas a penalty. He would have to spend one night alone in the pit. However, his runner status would not be taken away. Everyone agreed with that decision. Later, Minho secretly took Thomas to a hidden hut that actually belonged to Albie. Inside, Albie had created a massive map of the entire maze. Every section was marked, but even after all this time, he had never found an exit. Albie had never revealed this to anyone because he didn't want the group to lose hope of escaping. But now, Minho believed there was a chance, and the walls moved in specific patterns. At the end of each section, there was a massive door-like structure that could possibly be the exit. Since they had killed the Griever marked with number 7, maybe the exit lay in section 7. While they were discussing this, they suddenly heard the girl from earlier screaming outside. She was now awake but was throwing things at everyone, refusing to let anyone come near her. Carefully, Thomas approached her and tried to calm her down. She revealed her name was Teresa, but apart from that, she couldn't remember anything about herself. Thomas then revealed something shocking. He had already seen Teresa before in his dreams. This could mean they knew each other in real life. For now, Teresa showed him 2 syringes she had found in her pocket, both marked with WCKD. Thomas believed they might be an antidote to the Griever's sting. Since Albie's condition was getting worse, Thomas and the others rushed to him. When Thomas tried to inject him, Albie suddenly attacked, but the others restrained him, and Teresa quickly injected 1 syringe into him. Albie fell unconscious, but soon, his condition started to improve. Everyone was relieved, but Gally still locked Thomas inside the pit to finish his punishment. He only did this out of hatred because ever since Thomas arrived, everything had started changing. A little later, Chuck, who liked Thomas the most, visited him, brought him food, chatted for a while, and then left. The next day, Thomas went with Minho into Section 7 again. Along the way, they saw huge metal plates, and suddenly the device they had taken from the dead Grievers started beeping. As they moved further, the beeping grew louder until they finally reached a massive door. At that very moment, the device lit up green, and the door opened. When they stepped inside, they were scanned. But since the system detected that it wasn't Grievers but humans entering, alarms began blaring. Thomas and Minho panicked, realizing the maze walls in that section would soon start shifting. Barely managing to escape with their lives, they rushed back and told everyone what they had found, that the Grievers' entry point into the maze could actually be their way out. Some wanted to go check immediately, but Gally strongly opposed it. According to him, going there would be suicide, since it was basically the Grievers' nest filled with more of those monsters. Just then, Teresa announced that Albie had woken up. Immediately, Thomas and the others rushed to him. Thomas told Albie about the possible exit, but Albie looked extremely serious. The sting had brought back all of his memories. He revealed that everything was being done by a company called WCKD, and Thomas himself was actually their favorite subject. Both of them had once been part of some major mission inside those laboratories. This revelation shocked everyone, but at the same time, they noticed something terrifying. The sun was setting, but the maze doors still hadn't closed. That meant the Grievers could now come outside to kill them. Panic spread, and within moments, Grievers actually broke out of the maze and attacked. Most people ran toward the fields in desperation, but suddenly, one Griever pounced on a boy, terrifying everyone even more. At that moment, with Albie back on his feet, Thomas, Teresa, and the others tried to escape together. A Griever appeared in front of them again, but Teresa threw a lamp at it, setting its body on fire. Still, even burning, the creature didn't stop chasing them. Forced to keep running, they headed toward the council hall. On the way, Albie's weakness caused him to collapse. Seeing this, Thomas stepped between him and the Griever to protect him. Just as one of the Grievers was about to strike Thomas, Newt and the others hurled spears at it. Soon, the rest joined in, stabbing the Griever until it retreated. Even so, they had no choice but to flee into the council room, but the Grievers followed them inside too. One of them tried to drag Chuck away, but Albie intervened and slashed its stinger, saving Chuck's life. Unfortunately, another Griever attacked Albie, trying to pull him upward. Thomas fought desperately to save him, but despite all his efforts, he couldn't pull Albie back down. Realizing this, Albie begged Thomas to let him go and save everyone else. Against his will, Thomas was forced to release him, and the Griever killed Albie before disappearing. A little later, when everyone came out, Gally punched Thomas in front of everyone, blaming him for all the strange events since his arrival. And Thomas himself felt the same, that his past was somehow connected to all of this. Wanting to uncover the truth, he picked up a Griever stinger lying nearby and deliberately stung himself. Immediately, the venom's effect took hold, and he began to see visions of a laboratory where countless people were being used as part of an experiment, and Thomas himself had been one of the experimenters. The next morning, Thomas woke up inside the pit. Soon after, Newt and Chuck arrived and explained that after Albie's death, Gally had forcibly taken leadership. Now, Gally wanted to hand over Thomas and Teresa to the Grievers, believing that all this chaos had started because of them, and that once they were sacrificed, everything would finally return to normal. Hearing this, Thomas felt really strange. But then he finally told Newt the entire truth, that in reality, all of them had been together since childhood. Back then, inside a lab, experiments were being carried out on them for some unknown reason. One by one, all the kids started disappearing, until only Thomas and Teresa were left in the lab. At that time, neither of them understood where the others had gone. Now, Thomas was ready to help Newt and the rest. So Newt deliberately took him to Gally. When Gally's men tried to tie Thomas up, Thomas fought back by attacking them with a spear. During this fight, Chuck and Newt also helped him. Then Thomas begged everyone to join him so they could escape safely. Some of the Gladers actually sided with Thomas, but some still chose to stay loyal to Gally. Seeing this, Thomas pleaded with them again to stand with him, but Gally flatly refused. Thomas then freed Teresa and, along with his team, went back into the maze. They carried the device they had found earlier and started heading toward the 7th section. On the way, Grievers kept attacking them multiple times, but every time Thomas, Teresa, Newt, and Chuck bravely fought them off. Finally, they reached the gate of the 7th section. While fighting a Griever, Thomas guided Teresa to enter a manual code. After a short struggle, he managed to give Teresa the right sequence, and the gate opened. The group rushed inside and entered a lab, while the Griever got crushed under the wall and died. Inside the lab, Thomas and his team were shocked to see the dead bodies of several scientists lying all around. Confused, they moved further in and activated a computer system. That's when a video recording of Dr. Ava appeared. She first congratulated them on completing the first phase of the maze trials. Then she apologized for putting them in such terrible situations and revealed the truth. Some time ago, the Earth had grown unbearably hot due to solar flares, making human survival extremely difficult. As a result, a strange virus called the Flare started spreading among people. This virus destroyed civilization, leaving only a few survivors in the outside world. However, some children were immune to the virus, and those children were none other than the ones placed inside the maze. The trials were designed to push their brains and strengthen their immunity further. With their help, a cure for the virus could eventually be developed. Hearing this, everyone was completely shocked. But suddenly, in the video, soldiers stormed in and began killing everyone present. Dr. Ava, before being captured, shot herself to death. Her dead body was still lying there in the lab. Seeing this, Thomas and the others grew terrified. Just then, Glade appeared. He had followed them all the way, but a Griever had already stung him, infecting him badly. With no antidote left, he blamed Thomas for everything. In rage, Glade fired a bullet at Thomas. But Chuck stepped in, taking the shot in his chest to save him. With his dying breath, Chuck hurled a spear and killed Glade as well. Seeing Chuck dying in front of him, Thomas broke down, crying uncontrollably. Moments later, soldiers barged in, forcefully capturing Thomas and his team. They dragged them outside, where helicopters were waiting in the middle of a desert. As they boarded the helicopter, the soldier captain assured Thomas that they were now completely safe from WCKD. But hearing this only shocked Thomas further. Soon after they were flown away, Ava suddenly reappeared, alive and well. Everything had been staged to manipulate Thomas and his friends emotionally. Since they had cleared the first phase of the trial, they were now being promoted to the second phase. Ava was thrilled by this. And that's how the first phase of the maze trials comes to an end, filled with betrayals, heartbreaking sacrifices, and shocking revelations about the world outside. But now, the big question is, what will happen in the second phase? Will Thomas and the others ever escape this nightmare, or will WCKD's experiments break them completely? Tell me in the comments. If you were in Thomas's place, what would you have done? Would you trust WCKD's promise of safety, or fight back against them? If this video kept you hooked, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the continuation of this thrilling journey. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, stay safe and keep watching.